So last class we have seen the terminology, that is the constant pressure. Now today we will see the velocities in mass transfer, because it is a transport phenomena. The velocity is very important. So in a mixture which consists of at least two species or more than two, and each component may have different velocities. So we have to define the velocity of the mixture, and also it is important to velocity of each component. So the velocity. So we have to average the velocity of the mixture, and average can be done in two ways. One is based on the mass, and the second one is based on the mole. So the averaging of velocity, suppose you consider a mixture, suppose I consider a binary mixture, suppose VA is the velocity of A. Similarly, BB, velocity of component B. Similarly, for VC, if there is another component C, we can write VC. Then the average velocity of the mixture can be expressed in two ways. One is based on the mass, and second one is based on the mole. So if it is based on the mass, it is known as mass average velocity. Mass average velocity, it be denoted as capital and small b. Then the mass average, we have the question, the total mass flux, total mass flow rate, which is equal to m is equal to, if rho is the density of the mixture, then A is the area, then B is the average velocity of the mixture, then which is rho AB, which is equal to total mass flow rate is equal to sum of mass flow rate of individual components. So it is equal to rho A VA plus rho B A V. So from here you will get the average velocity of the mixture. V is equal to A can be cancelled out, so we will get which is equal to rho A VA plus rho B VB by rho. So this is which is equal to, where rho is equal to, which can be expressed as rho A VA plus rho B VB, where rho is equal to, we have seen in the last class, rho is equal to rho A plus rho B. This is the mass average velocity of the mixture. Or in generally we can write, if the mixture consists of more than two components, we can write the mass average velocity is equal to, as summation form, which is equal to rho A VI divided by sigma rho A. This is rho B. Or which is equal to, we know that, which is equal to B is equal to sigma rho A VI by sigma rho A can be written as so. Then rho A by rho is the mass fraction WI. This is the expression for mass average velocity. Okay. Base mass average. Similarly, the average velocity of the mixture can be expressed on molar basis. So you can write molar average velocity. which is denoted as capital V. Which is denoted by capital V. Similarly, you can write the mass flow in terms of moles. That is C into A into V, which is equal to CA VA plus CB VB. Or you can write V is equal to molar average velocity, which is equal to CA VA plus CB VB by C, which is equal to CA VA plus CB VB by CA plus C. Like that you can write. Or in summation form, the molar average velocity is equal to sigma CI VI by sigma CI. Or it is equal to sigma CI, or in another form, sigma CI can be written as C, which is equal to sigma CI VI by which is equal to CI by C can be written as the mole fraction, that is YI VI, molar average velocity. Next is the diffusion velocity. So you consider I am dropping a die. I am dropping a die, which is die, in a stationary liquid. It's a water, suppose it's a stationary liquid. Then what happens? The dye will diffuse in the water, and it moves in radial direction. So the velocity of this dye is known as the diffusion velocity. This is the diffusion velocity. Here the water, which is stationary. Then what happens if the dye is dropped in a flowing fluid? Suppose the water is flowing and the dye is dropping. Now the velocity. So here the dye will diffuse radially, and also it moves along with the fluid due to this bulk motion of the fluid. So here the velocity of the dye can be expressed in two ways based on two coordinates. One is the first coordinate. You can express the velocity of the y based on a coordinate which moves along with the bulk fluid, or which moves, the velocity of the fluid is the average velocity. This is the average velocity. And the mass average velocity or molar average velocity. So you can express the velocity of the dye based on the coordinate which moves with the average velocity, or we can express the velocity of dye with respect to a coordinate which is fixed. So in two ways we can express the velocity of the dye. One is based on a coordinate which moves along with the average velocity, or based on with respect to a fixed coordinate. So if you express the velocity of dye with respect to a moving coordinate which moves with the average velocity, means actually the velocity of the dye with respect to the average velocity. So the diffusion velocity. The diffusion velocity is the relative velocity. Diffusion velocity means the relative velocity of the dye with respect to the average velocity. If the velocity is expressed based on this moving coordinate, it's known as the diffusion velocity. So the diffusion velocity is the relative velocity It's a relative velocity of component with respect to the average velocity. With respect to the average velocity. Then similarly, the velocity of the die can be expressed based on the fixed velocity. Then suppose VA is the velocity of the die with respect to the fixed velocity of die. So velocity of components. Velocity of component A. This is the velocity of component A. Then V diffusion of V is the diffusion velocity of component A. Then we can write V diffusion, the diffusion velocity of A, which is the relative velocity of the component with respect to the average velocity, that is, which is equal to VA minus V. Okay, which is equal to VA minus V, or VA can be written as V diffusion plus. So here VA is the velocity of the component with respect to the fixed quantity, that is absolute velocity of the component. Then V diffusion is the relative velocity of the component with respect to the average velocity, this is the diffusion velocity. Then V is known as the bulk velocity, which is the bulk velocity or the average velocity of the mass. So the total velocity of the component is equal to diffusion velocity plus velocity due to the bulk motion of the fluid. So here we are defining two types of velocity. We have to define, one is the average velocity and second one is the diffusion velocity. And the average velocity are of two types, that is, one is based on the mass, that is mass average velocity, and second one is the molar average velocity. Next is fluxes. Fluxes means consider area of cross section. Then suppose a component passes through this area with a velocity V normal to the surface. Then the fluxes is defined as the amount of particular species in either mass or molar. You can express the flux either in terms of mass or molar, that is mass flux and molar flux. So flux means amount of particular species in either mass or molar units that passes per unit time through unit area normal to the velocity. So the amount of component which passes through unit area per unit time in normal direction is known as the flux, and the flux can be expressed either in terms of mass or mole units. So based on the mass it is known as mass flux, if it is based on the molar, then it is known as molar fluxes. So the mass flux which is expressed as small n E, mass flux of E, mass flux of component E, that is, I am writing, it is represented by small letter in bold letter and text box. I am using that is NA in x direction, NAX, which is equal to, that is NAX is equal to mass flux is equal to mass flow rate by unit area. So we will get mass flux is equal to rho A into E. VAX. We can take the direction. Okay. So similarly you can express. So its unit is the mass flow rate per unit area. So the unit is in mass basis. So it is kilogram per meter square second. Nx is equal. Similarly you can express based on the molar. So which is known as a molar flux. The molar flux of component A, which is represented by small letters, mass base in small letter, molar basis in capital letter using. So it is small letter n. So here I am writing capital letter n. Nx. രണ്ടും തമ്മിൽ ഡിസ്റ്റിങ്ഷ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി മാസും മോളും തമ്മിൽ ഡിസ്റ്റിങ്ഷ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി ഒന്ന് സ്മാൾ ലെറ്ററും ഒന്ന് ക്യാപിറ്റൽ ലെറ്റർ. So here molar flux in x direction. Molar flux of A in x direction Nx, which is equal to, here you have to write the concentration, that is Ca into Vnx. This is the flux based on mass and molar. Then these are the two types of flux. Then two more fluxes are there based on the diffusion velocity, which is the total velocity of the component. Now with respect to based on the diffusion velocity, you can express the flux also. So two more fluxes are there, that is mass flux, mass diffusion flux and molar diffusion flux. This is the total flux. Okay. Total mass flux. This is the total mass flux. It's a total molar flux. So two more fluxes, that is diffusion mass flux and diffusion molar flux based on the diffusion velocity. So here next is diffusion flux. Diffusion flux can also be expressed based on mass and molar basis. So based on the mass basis, it is mass diffusion flux of component, which is represented by small letter J A, component A in x direction, which is equal to Jx is equal to again rho A V, rho into V, that is Jx is equal to, that is rho of V, rho of A into the diffusion velocity. The diffusion velocity is, it is V diffusion. Diffusion velocity of A in x direction is equal to rho A into, you know that diffusion velocity is equal to Vax minus V, average velocity, which is the mass average velocity. Okay, where V is the mass average velocity. Jx is equal to. Similarly, the diffusion flux can express in terms based on the modes. That is molar diffusion flux. Molar diffusion flux of component E in x direction, which is represented by capital letter E, J A X. Molar diffusion flux of A in x direction, which is equal to Jx is equal to Ca into P diffusion of P. It's equal to Ca into diffusion velocity of A, which is equal to VA minus Vax minus the molar average velocity, which is capital V. This capital Jx is equal to, where capital V is the molar average velocity. Okay. So we have seen these are the four types of fluxes. There are four types of fluxes. One is the two fluxes are diffusion fluxes, mass diffusion flux and molar diffusion flux. Then two more, that is total mass flux and total molar flux. These are the four types of fluxes. We use it problem. That is total mass flux, total molar flux represented by Na. Then diffusion fluxes, two diffusion fluxes based on the mass and modes. Molar diffusion flux and mass diffusion flux represented by J, small letter J and capital letter G. Then we can connect these two. We can connect the mass total flux and diffusion flux. We can combine these two. So we know that the total mass transported, we know that it's very simple. Total mass transported which is equal to mass transported by diffusion then plus mass transported by the bulk motion. Bulk motion of fluid. So total mass transported is equal to mass transported by diffusion plus mass transported by the bulk motion. The total mass transported, that is the total mass flux. The total mass flux, that is rho A, total mass transported of component A, that is rho A into VA in x direction, which is equal to the mass transported by diffusion, that is the diffusion velocity, that is rho J into x in x direction plus is equal to mass transported by the bulk motion, which is equal to rho into V, rho A V, mass transported by the bulk motion. Okay, the same expression. Similarly, we can write based on the mode, we can write which is equal to Ca Vax, which is equal to capital J, Jx plus Ca into V, which is the molar average velocity. It's a total flux which is equal to diffusion flux plus mass transported due to bulk motion. So we have rho A dx which is equal to Jx plus rho A d. Total flux is equal to diffusion flux plus flux due to bulk motion. Then here rho A dx is Nx. So we have rho A Vx is equal to Jx plus rho A into V, where V is the mass average velocity. So here rho A Vx is Nax, total mass flux of component A in x direction, which is equal to let be like this. Later we will put rho A Vx, which is equal to Jx plus rho A into V is the mass average velocity. We know that V is equal to rho A Va plus rho B Vb divided by rho A plus rho B or rho. It's the mass average velocity, which is equal to Jx plus rho A by rho, which is equal to Wa. It's a mass fraction of component A into rho A Vx plus rho B Vb dx. That is rho A Vx is equal to total flux of component A in x direction, which is equal to diffusion flux plus due to bulk motion. Then we know that rho A Vx is equal to NAx, which is equal to Jx plus Wa into, again it is NAx. Rho A Vx is equal to NAx plus is for B, so it is NBx. Since NAx is equal to rho A Vax and NBx is equal to rho B Vbx, the total flux, total mass flux. Similarly, this is based on the mass. Based on the mass. Then based on the mole, that is on molar basis. This is mass basis. Then based on the molar basis, similarly we can write that is Ca. Vx is equal to Jx diffusion, molar diffusion flux plus due to flux due to bulk motion, that is Ca into the molar average velocity. Then the molar average velocity can be written as Jx plus Ca into molar average velocity, which is equal to Ca Vax plus Cb Vbx by C, which is equal to Jx plus Ca by C is mole fraction, which is equal to Ya, mole fraction of component A into Ca Vax plus Cb Vbx, that is Ca Vax. Then Ca Vx is the total flux. Ca Vax is the total molar flux. Similarly, you can write Cb Vbx is equal to Nbx. So you can write NaX is equal to Jx plus Ya into NaX plus Nbx. So this is the relation between the total flux and diffusion flux. So these are the four types. There are four types of fluxes. One is the total flux, that is based on the mass and mole. Total mass flux and total molar flux. Then two more, that is diffusion flux based on the mass and mole. Jx is the mass diffusion flux, and capital J is the molar diffusion. There are four types of fluxes. Then another summarize the table like that. So here I am here I have listed the terminologies which we have studied so far. That is the concentration of component A based on the mass. That is rho E, which is equal to mass of A divided by volume of the mixture, where V is the volume of the mixture. Then similarly, the molar concentration of A CA, which is equal to number of moles of A divided by the volume of the mixture. Then you can find out rho A in terms of Ca, which is equal to Ca into molecular weight of A, molar mass of A. Similarly, you can find out Ca in terms of rho A, as Ca is equal to rho A by molar mass of A. Then the concentration of mixture. The concentration of mixture is equal to rho A plus rho B, where rho is the concentration of the mixture or the density of the mixture. The unit is kilogram per meter. Here it is kilogram per meter. So I am right. Here it is kilogram per meter. Here it is kilomole per meter. Now we can find the concentration of the mixture in terms of the molar concentration, as rho is equal to CaMa plus CbMb, where M is capital M is the molar mass of A and here Mb is the molar mass of B. Similarly, the concentration, the mixture concentration can be found in terms of concentration, mass concentration of individual components, that is C is equal to rho A by Ma plus rho B by Mb, where Ma is the molar mass of A and Mb is the molar mass of B. Then the fraction. There are two types, mass fraction and mole fraction. Mass fraction is equal to rho A by rho and mole fraction is equal to Ca by C. And mole fraction, which can also be expressed in terms of the partial volume and partial pressure. That is Ya is equal to partial volume of A divided by the total volume of the mixture. Similarly, it is equal to partial pressure of A divided by the total pressure of the mixture. Wa cannot be written like this. Okay. Then the Wa can be expressed in terms of Ya and Yb. So Wa is equal to Ya Ma, where Ma is the molar mass of component A plus Yb into molar mass of component B. Similarly, if you know the value of W and Wb, we can find out Ya. That is Ya is equal to Wa by Ma divided by Wa by Ma plus Wb by Mb, where capital M is the, again, the molar masses. Then the velocities. Remember, there are average velocity can be expressed either in terms of mass or in terms of moment. So mass average velocity is equal to rho A Va plus rho B Vb by rho, where rho is equal to rho A plus rho B. Then the molar average velocity, capital V, which is equal to Ca Va plus Cb Vb by C. Then comes the fluxes. There are four types of fluxes: two diffusion flux and two total fluxes. Then the diffusion flux, mass diffusion flux, that is Jx, which is equal to rho A into the diffusion velocity Vax minus V, where V is the mass average velocity. Then the molar diffusion flux, capital Jx, which is equal to Ca into the diffusion velocity, or Vx minus capital V. Capital V is the molar average velocity. Then total flux, which is equal to small nx, total mass flux, which is equal to small nx, which is equal to rho A into Vx. Then total molar flux, capital Nx, which is equal to Ca into Vx. Okay, these are the terminologies we have seen so far, and we have related these two also. Jx and Nx, you can connect. Also, you can connect Jx and Nx based on this equation. Nx is equal to Jx plus, similarly, capital Nx. Okay. Next, we will see Next we will see, so here we have, the total mass flux which is equal to diffusion flux plus WL plus NX plus NVX. Now we will find out Jx. There is an expression for Jx which is defined by a law known as Fick's law of diffusion. Okay. So the diffusion, as the dye can be dropped in a stationary fluid or it can be dropped in a flowing fluid. So if a stationary fluid is drop then the total flux is equal to this part. This is the transportation due to the bulk motion. So stationary liquid dye drop this time is 0 if the fluid is stationary. Then the dye flux is Jx. If a dye flowing fluid drop then the total flux is equal to Jx plus you have to consider the bulk motion of the fluid also. Okay. The stationary fluid this time will be 0. Also here, in terms of molar basis, if we consider the flux of the dye in a stationary liquid, if it is a stationary liquid, then the second time will be 0. The bulk velocity will be 0 for a stationary fluid. So NX is equal to Jx. I will write for a stationary fluid. For a stationary fluid. Then CAVX is equal to, or NAX is equal to, CAVX is equal to Jx, since capital V is 0. For a stationary fluid, capital V is 0. CAVX is equal to Jx, or NAX is equal to Jx, capital N. Capital N is equal to Jx. Or in based on the mass, small nx is equal to Jx for a stationary fluid. Okay. So now we consider there is a law which defines the diffusion flux. This law is known as the Fick's law. Okay. Then the Fick's law of diffusion. The Fick's law of diffusion, the Fick's rate equation, can be expressed in many ways. So the diffusion, I will write the positive expression that the rate of diffusion, that is JAX, the diffusion mass flux, JAX, according to Fick's law, this is proportional to the concentration gradient in that direction. The rate of the diffusion mass flux is directly proportional to the concentration gradient. The diffusion flux is directly proportional to the concentration gradient. So it is JD, gradient is d rho A by dx, or Jx is equal to a constant into minus d A into d rho A by dx. Diffusion, or in other form, is based on the mass. Then based on the modes, you can write Jx is equal to minus dAB into dCA by dx. This is the Fick's rate equation in two forms. One is based on the mass and second one is based on the mole. So in molar basis, the mass diffusion flux of component A in x direction, which is equal to a constant into the concentration gradient in that direction. So here this constant is known as mass diffusion coefficient, is DAB is known as the diffusion coefficient which is known as the mass diffusivity. Similar, we have seen it's a similar term. So we have seen a similar term, that is thermal diffusivity alpha, and kinematic momentum diffusivity, that is nu, kinematic viscosity. Similarly, we have mass transfer. We have a constant which is known as mass diffusivity, DAB. So here we have put a negative sign. Why? Because in the flow direction, in the transfer direction, the concentration decreases. The concentration decreases in the flow direction because the mass transport takes place from high concentration to low concentration. Therefore, the concentration gradient is negative. So for that we have put a negative sign, and the constant is known as the diffusion coefficient or mass diffusivity, which is actually it's a complex parameter which depends on so many parameters like pressure, temperature, composition, because it is a mass transport involves some motion. It involves some motion, so it depends on so many parameters including pressure, temperature, velocity, etc. It depends on the flow condition also. So here generally the D is proportional to some P by so here the diffusion coefficient of gas, the diffusion coefficient of gas increases with temperature. Also it increases with decreasing pressure, and also it depends on the for liquid also the diffusion coefficient increases with temperature, and also for liquid this strongly depends on the composition. For liquid strongly depends on the composition of the components. Okay. So the value of diffusion coefficient can be obtained from the data book. If it is, unless otherwise it is given in your problem, you can take the value from the data book, that is page number 180. You can take the value of DAB for various composition. From the data book of page number 180. Okay. Then we will find out the unit of DAB, the mass diffusivity. Here diffusivity DAB which is equal to Jx by d rho a by dx. Next we find out the unit, that's here DAB is equal, can be expressed as Jx by d rho a by dx. Jx is equal to the mass, diffusion mass flux, that is flux is mass flow rate per unit area per unit time, kilogram per meter square per second, divided by rho a is the mass density, that is kilogram per meter cube per meter. Dx is length. So we will get meter square on meter square on. So we will get meter square per second. Okay. This is same unity. That's the same as that of thermal diffusivity. For alpha and mu, the unit is same, meter square per second diffusivity. So now we have Jx is equal to minus dAB into d rho A by dx. Then the rho A can be written as, we have rho A is equal to, in terms of the density of concentration of the mixture, you can write rho A is equal to W into rho. Okay, in terms of mass fraction, because W is equal to rho A by rho. So you can put where rho is the concentration of the mixture, so which is equal to, you can write minus dAB into d by dx of WA rho. Rho is constant because which is independent of the position x. Then you can write which is equal to minus rho into dAB into dWA by dx. This is another form of fixed right equation. Similarly, you can express in terms of mole. We can express in terms of mole also. We have molar diffusion flux. Jx is equal to minus dAB into dCA by dx. And we know that Ya is equal to Ca by C, the mole fraction. So you can express in terms of mole fraction similar to this, that is Jx is equal to minus C into dAB into dYA by dx. This is a fixed right equation. Now another. These are the different forms of fixed right equation. Total mass flux of it in x direction. Na is equal to Jx plus WA into NAX plus NBX. Okay, they are different here. We have so we already defined NX is equal to Jx plus W into NX plus NBX, similarly capital NX. So you can put the value of Jx, where the diffusion heat flux, in terms of fixed law, that is NX is equal to so here we have Jx is equal to minus rho dAB into dWA by dx plus WA into NX plus NBX, that is NX. This is a fixed right equation in another. Similarly, on molar basis we have NaX is equal to Jx, molar diffusion flux of common in x direction, plus Ya into NaX plus NBX. you can substitute the value of jx, which is equal to minus c dab into dy by dx plus y into nax plus nb dx. This nax is separate. This is another form of fixed rate equation. So these are the different forms of fixed rate equation. That is jx is equal to dab into d rho a by rho x or rho into dab into dw by dx. This is another form. Then fixed rate equation can also be expressed as jx is equal to minus dab into dya by dx. All these forms also. These are the different forms of fixed rate equation. So this is the fixed rate equation. Fixed rate equation of commodity A in x direction. That's for where Nx is the total flux of component A in x direction. Similarly, you can write the expression for the total component of B in x direction. Similarly, you can write in dx is equal to, that is the total molar flux of component B in x direction, which is equal to minus c. We have to find out, suppose here I am writing dAB is the diffusivity of component A in a fluid B. Similarly, I am writing the diffusivity of B in a fluid A. I am finding out, here I am finding out the diffusion of B in fluid A. Similarly, the diffusion of here, it is the diffusion of A in fluid B. So I am writing C into dB into d by d in x direction plus here becomes yb into nax plus ndx. So what happens if you add these two equations? It will be equation 1 and equation 2. If you add these two, suppose you consider is a stationary fluid. You consider a stationary fluid. Consider a stationary fluid. So for a stationary fluid, this bulk motion, the bulk motion is known as a conversion part. This conversion time is 0. The conversion time is 0. So nax plus ndx will be 0 for a stationary fluid. So you can write nax plus ndx is 0. This time becomes 0. And you add these two equations. So you will get nax plus ndx is equal to this plus this. So you will get for a stationary fluid, if you add 1 and 2, if you add 1 plus 2, you will get, if you add these two, you will get nax plus ndx, which is equal to this. That is nax plus ndx is equal to minus c dab into dy by dx minus c dba into dy by dx. The second time nax plus ndx is 0. So this is also 0. Or you will get dab into dy by dx, which is equal to minus dba into d by dx. But we know that ya plus yb, which is equal to 1. Total sum of total mole fraction is equal to 1. So if you substitute this value, yb is equal to 1 minus ya. we substitute 1 minus ya becomes differential of 1 is 0. So we will get minus dya, and minus into minus is plus. So we will get dab is equal to d. Okay. Okay. So we have the equation that is jx is equal to minus c dab into dya by dx. Okay, it's a differential equation. So for finding out the mass fraction or mole fraction or the concentration, we have to integrate this equation. And for integrating, we need some, for the solution, we need some boundary condition. At some x is equal to what will be this value, or at a particular time what will be this concentration. So the concentration varies with respect to x, and of course with respect to time also. If it's an unsteady case, the concentration will change. The concentration at a point will change with respect to time. So we need the conditions, some condition, that is initial condition and boundary condition for getting the concentration at a particular point, at a particular instant. So the conditions we needed are we need the conditions, initial condition and boundary condition. So we need the value of concentration at time t is equal to 0 or t is equal to t1. It's known as the initial condition. You already seen it, unsteady heat conduction. I am not explaining. So next one is boundary condition. Boundary condition means we need the value of x, value of concentration when x is equal to 0 or when x is equal to L. Suppose the boundary condition is usually expressed as when x is equal to 0 at a particular position. At a particular position, when x is equal to 0 or x is equal to L, the concentration, that is concentration of A, which is equal to CAS. Like that we know the value of CAS. Or we know the value of Ya is equal to YAS, whereas is the surface. So at x is equal to 0, that surface, the concentration of A is CAS, or Ya is equal to YAS, or you can write PA, the partial pressure of A, which is equal to PAS. So for solving this equation, we need the boundary condition. At x is equal to 0, what will be the concentration or mole fraction? Okay. Or W is equal to WAS, or rho A is equal to rho AS. These are the boundary condition. Then another boundary condition, you can express at surface we need some concentration, or the surface at some end of surface or the mass flux at that's another boundary condition. That's boundary condition can also be expressed when x is equal to 0, where when x is equal to 0 we have jx is equal to, where jx, that is minus c dab into dya by dx, which is equal to JAS. So capital G. So when at x is equal to 0, the mass flux, when molar flux, which is equal to this area. So we can express. At a particular surface, the heat flux is 10 kilowatt per meter. Similarly, the mass flux you can express at a particular surface where the mass flux is some particular value, say JS. Suppose if the surface is impermeable, okay. Then another boundary condition, suppose for an impermeable surface. Impermeable means the mass is not permitted to cross. So for an impermeable surface, the diffusion flux is 0. Jx is at x is equal to 0. Say at x is equal to 0. Jx is equal to 0. Or C minus C dAB into dya by dx is equal to 0. But C and dAB cannot be 0. So for an impermeable surface, dya by dx is equal to 0. Or impermeable surface. Okay. These are the various boundary conditions that we are using for solving these equations. We need some initial condition for in the case of unsteady problems. We will unsteady steady state. So we will initial condition. At time t is equal to 0 and the flux concentration. That's the initial condition. But we unsteady we forget about initial condition. We will steady state. So we need the boundary condition. A boundary surface that x is equal to 0 or when x is equal to L or surface the concentration is CAS, or in terms of Y is equal to YS or partial pressure is PAS or mole fraction or mass fraction is L. Or when x is equal to 0 or the concentration mass flux at particular surface the mass flux is Jx like that. Or permeable surface, suppose the surface at when x is equal to 0, at that position the surface is impermeable to mass transfer. So in that condition the gradient is 0, the concentration gradient dCA by dx or d by A by dx is 0. You can apply this. These are the boundary conditions. So now we will study the steady state diffusion through a stationary plane medium. So you consider a stationary plane medium of area of cross section A. Suppose A is the area of cross section. Then its exercises at when x is equal to 0. The concentration is Ya1, mole fraction. Mole fraction of the component A is Ya1, and when x is equal to L, here the mole fraction of A is Ya2. So for simplicity I am considering a binary mixture. Now we consider an elementary plane of thickness dx. So we have the equation. Jx is nx is equal to Jx, which is equal to minus C dAB into dya by dx. So here Jx for a steady state, Jx is constant. So you can write or in which is equal to here you can express in another form, that is dAB is into dCA by dx. No problem. Okay. Anyway you can express. So here for a steady state Jx is constant, so you can write Jx or nx. Nx is constant, you can write nx into dx, which is equal to minus dAB into dc. So if you integrate this one, x varies from 0 to L. Then Ca. So when x is equal to 0, suppose the concentration is Ca1, and when x is equal to L, the concentration is Ca2. or mode fraction is YA1 and mode fraction is YA2. So here, therefore if you integrate this one, Nax is constant for steady state, Nax is constant, so it can be taken outside Nax. Then integral of dx is x. If you apply the limit, it becomes L minus 0, which is equal to, here you have to apply the limit, Ca, the concentration varies from Ca1 to Ca2. So if you integrate this one and apply the limit, it becomes Ca2 minus Ca1, and there is a minus outside, so it becomes dAB into Ca1 minus Ca2. Or Nax is equal to dAB into Ca1 minus Ca2 by N. Or in terms of molar basis of molar basis, in terms of mass basis, we can write Nax is equal to dAB into rho A1 minus rho A2 by N. Rho A1 minus rho A2 by N. Or it can be expressed in terms of WA, that is rho into dAB into WA1 minus WA2 by O, which is equal to WA1 minus WA2 by L rho D. If it's a mass flux, here Nax is equal to MAX by E. Then you will get MAX, which is equal to L by rho D into A, where A is the area of cross section, which is equivalent to our electrical analogous data, that is some mass diffusion flux next of amount in x direction. Here the potential is WA1 and here the potential is WA2, and the resistance is L by rho dAB into A, where L by rho dAB into A is known as the diffusion resistance, similar to thermal resistance. Here also you can write, in terms of y you can write NAX, which is equal to dAB into YA. NAX is equal to C can be outside, so it becomes C dAB into YA1 minus YA2 by so other equations. So expression for total flux. We have for a plate the diffusion mass flux, that is M is equal to rho into dAB into A into YA1 minus rho A1 WA1 minus WA2 by WA1 minus WA2 by WA1 minus WA2 by L. Then for a hollow cylinder, if R1 is the inner radius and R2 is the outer radius and L is the length, then the diffusion rate which is equal to rho into dAB into 2 pi L dAB into rho into WA1 minus WA2 by ln R2 by R1. Okay. Conduction of the equation, same equation, conduction 2 pi Lk into T1 minus T2 by ln R2 by R1. We have 2 pi L dAB into rho. Similarly, for hollow sphere. For hollow sphere, inner radius is R1, outer radius is R2. Here it is WA1, here it is WA2. Mass fractions. Then we have the diffusion rate which is equal to 4 pi into R1, R2 into dAB into rho into WA1 minus WA2 by R2 minus R. So in the equations page number 176 by heart and option page number 176 equation concept. Okay. So another rho A1 that is 4 pi R1 R2 and dAB. There is a correction. Equation for sphere 4 pi R1 R2 dAB. Okay. Now add 4 pi R1 R2 into dAB. Okay. Then rho into WA1 is rho A1. Okay. Concentration 4 pi R1 R2 dAB into rho into W1 is rho A1 minus rho A2 by R2 minus. Okay. That's the equation. The problem is we will see a problem and problem there. Okay. Here we will see a small problem. So consider pressurized hydrogen gas is stored at 350 Kelvin in a hydrogen at 358 Kelvin in a 4.8 meter outer diameter spherical container made of nickel. The shell of container is 6 cm thick. The shell of container is 6 cm thick. The molar concentration of hydrogen in the nickel at the inner surface is determined to be 0.087. So here is 0.087 kilomole per liter. The concentration of hydrogen in the nickel at the outer surface is negligible. So here outer surface the concentration is 0. Determine the mass flow rate of hydrogen by diffusion through the nickel container. Take dAB, the value of dAB is given as 1.2 into 10 raised to minus 2. 1.2 into 10 raised to minus 12. 1.2 into 10 raised to minus 12 meter square per second. So it's a spherical hollow sphere. So we have the equation that is m is equal to m. You can find out the mass or mole based on the concentration. Here the concentration is given as molar concentration. So I am finding out in moles, say n of it, which is equal to for a hollow sphere it is 4 pi into R1 R2 DAB into CA1 minus CA2 divided by R2 minus R1. Okay. So here the inner radius is given. Inner radius, outer diameter is given, that is d2 is given. d2 is 4.8 meter. Therefore R2 is equal to 2.4 meter. Then the thickness is given as 6 centimeter. So R2 minus R1 which is equal to 6 centimeter, which is equal to 0.06 meter. Therefore R1 is equal to 2.4 minus 0.06 is equal to 2.34. Okay, 2.34 meter. So you can find out Na, the diffusion rate in mole basis. You will get the answer in mole per second, kilomole per second. So you will get is equal to 4 pi into R1 is 2.34 into 2.4 into DAB is 1.2 into 10 raised to minus 12 into CA1. CA1 is, here we have CA1 is given as 0.087 kilomole per meter cube. And CA2 is 0. So you substitute here, it becomes 0.087 minus 0 divided by R2 is 2.4 minus 2.34. So which is equal to, we'll get the answer as 1.228 into 10 raised to minus 10 kilomole per second. We can convert this into mass flow in kilogram per second. We know that number of moles is equal to mass by molar mass. So the mass flow rate m of hydrogen, mass flow rate of hydrogen, which is equal to n into the molar mass of hydrogen. Mass into molar mass of, number of moles into molar mass of hydrogen. So which is equal to 1.228 into 10 raised to minus 10 into the molar mass of hydrogen is 2. So which is equal to 2.46 into 10 raised to minus 10 kilogram per second. ഇവിടെ അതിനകത്ത് കോൺസെൻട്രേഷൻ തന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ കോൺസെൻട്രേഷൻ കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാൻ, സപ്പോസ് കോൺസെൻട്രേഷൻ കണ്ടുപിടിക്കാനായിട്ട് ദിസ് പ്രഷർ ഈസ് നോട്ട് ഗിവൺ. സോ ഇഫ് ദ പ്രഷർ ഈസ് ഗിവൺ, സപ്പോസ് പി തന്നിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ കോൺസെൻട്രേഷൻ കണ്ടുപിടിക്കുക. CA1 is equal to Na1 by V. So we have the equation PV is equal to PV is equal to VA is equal to Na RA into T. Okay. So ഇവിടെ പ്രഷർ തന്നിട്ടില്ല, കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ഹൈഡ്രജൻ ആണ്. സോ ടോട്ടൽ പ്രഷർ ഈസ് ഈക്വൽ ടു പാർഷ്യൽ പ്രഷർ ഓഫ് ഹൈഡ്രജൻ. പ്രഷർ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ you can find out Na by V. Na by V കാരണം RU നമുക്കറിയാം, യൂണിവേഴ്സൽ ഗ്യാസ് കൺഷൻ അറിയാം, ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ അറിയാം 358 കെൽവിൻ. ദെൻ പ്രഷറും കൂടെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ you can find out Na. സോ ഡയറക്റ്റ് അവർ തന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. Next we see another problem. Hydrogen gas is maintained at a pressure of 3 bar and 1 bar on opposite sides of a 0.3 mm thick rubber membrane, and the entire system is at 25 degrees Celsius. What is the molar diffusion flux of hydrogen through the membrane? Take DAB is equal to 8.7 into 10 raised to minus 8 meter square per second, and solubility of hydrogen in rubber and rushing. Take solubility of hydrogen and solubility of hydrogen in rubber is 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 3 kilomole per meter cube bar. Okay. Okay. So it's a case of plate. It's a case of plate. So one side we have the hydrogen at 3 bar, and the opposite side the hydrogen is at 1 bar. Hydrogen മാത്രമേ, so partial pressure is equal to the total pressure. Partial pressure തന്നെയാണ് total pressure. അതാണ് opposite side. Then its thickness of the slab is 0.3 mm. Then the DAB is given as 8.7 into 10 raised to minus 10 meters square per second, and solubility of the hydrogen is, so we have L is equal to, it's a case of plain water, so it is L is equal to 0.3 mm, which is equal to 0.3 into 10 raised to minus 3 meter. Then DAB is equal to 8.7 into 10 raised to minus 8 meters square per second. Then VA1 is equal to 3 bar and VA2 is equal to 1 bar. Then solubility. Solubility approximately by S is equal to 1.5 into 10 raised to 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 3 kilomole per meter cube bar. Solubility പറയുന്നത് നമ്മൾ സാധാരണ ഈ സോളിഡ് ഗ്യാസും കൂടെ വരുന്നത് we consider a solid and gas interface. The solid gas interface അവിടെ വരുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ അതിൻ്റെ ഗ്യാസിൻ്റെ the concentration of this gas, the concentration is expressed by solubility, which is equal to the concentration of A, which is equal to, can be expressed as concentration of A, which is equal to a solubility into the partial pressure of the gas B. The concentration of A, which is equal to solubility, solid and gas in the solubility. That is a particular temperature, particular solubility area. At this temperature, the solubility of gas and the solid is S. That is a constant area, which is equal to, then the concentration is equal to solubility into the partial pressure and concentration equation. Here solubility, the unit is kilomole per meter cube bar. Per unit pressure, it's a solubility. So if we multiply the solubility with partial pressure of gas, gives the concentration in kilomole per meter cubic. So you can find out Ca1 and Ca2. So Ca1, which is equal to S into Pa1, and Ca2 is equal to S into Pa2, where Pa1 and Pa2 are the partial pressures of hydrogen. The pressure that is 3 bar and 1 bar and so you will get Ca1 is equal to S into Pa hydrogen at 1, that is which is equal to 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 3. Here it is in bar, solubility is in bar, so you have to multiply this with the pressure in terms of bar, that is 3 bar. It's equal to 4.5 into 10 raised to minus 3 kilomole per meter cube. Similarly, you can find out Ca2. Ca2 is equal to S into Pa2, which is equal to S is equal to 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 3. 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 3 into Pa2 is 1 bar. It's equal to 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 3 kilomole per meter. Then for a plain slab, we have the mass diffusion rate of hydrogen, which is equal to DAB into A into Ca1 minus Cl2 by N. So the area is not given, so you can take the diffusion flux, that is N of hydrogen by area, which is equal to DAB, where DAB is equal to 8.7 into 10 raised to minus 8. 8.7 into 10 raised to minus 8 into Ca1 is 4.5 into 10 raised to minus 8. 4.5 into 10 raised to minus 3 minus Ca2 is 1.5 into 10 raised to minus 3 divided by the thickness is 0.3 mm. So it is equal to 0.3 into 10 raised to minus 3. So we get the answer as 8.7 into 10 raised to minus 7 kilomole per meter square second. So flux kilomoles per meter square second. Okay. For times of kilogram, you can find out that is mass flow rate of hydrogen per unit area, which is equal to 8.7 into 10 raised to minus 7 into the molar mass. into 2 is equal to 2.87 into 10 raised to minus 6. Sorry, 1.7. 8.7 into 10 raised to minus 7 into 2, which is equal to 1.74. 1.74 into 10 raised to minus 6 kilogram per meter square. Okay. It's all about steady state diffusion through different mediums. So steady state ആണെങ്കിൽ നമ്മൾ ബൾക്ക് മോഷൻ എടുത്തിട്ടില്ല, ഇവിടെ എല്ലാം ഡിഫ്യൂഷൻ മാത്രമേ എടുത്തിട്ടുള്ളൂ. ബൾക്ക് മോഷൻ വന്നിട്ടില്ല, ഫ്ലൂയിഡിൻ്റെ ബൾക്ക് മോഷൻ ഇല്ല. സോ അടുത്ത ക്ലാസ് തൊട്ട് നമ്മൾ അതും കൂടെ എടുക്കും. ഇത്രയും സ്റ്റഡി സ്റ്റേറ്റ് ഡിഫ്യൂഷൻ രണ്ട് പാർട്ടുണ്ട്. ദ ഫ്ലക്സ് ഡിഫ്യൂഷൻ ഫ്ലക്സും ഉണ്ട്, ടോട്ടൽ ഫ്ലക്സും ഉണ്ട്. സോ ഫ്ലൂയിഡ് സ്റ്റേഷനറി ആണെങ്കിൽ ഡിഫ്യൂഷൻ ഫ്ലക്സും ടോട്ടൽ ഫ്ലക്സും സെയിം ആണ്. ഓക്കെ. If the fluid is stationary, the diffusion flux is equal to total flux. So, നമ്മൾ ഇവിടെ സ്റ്റേഷനറി മീഡിയം ആണ് എടുത്തത് ഫോർ പ്ലെയിൻ സ്ലാബ്, ദെൻ സിലിണ്ടർ, ഓളോ സിലിണ്ടർ ആൻഡ് ഓളോ സ്പിയർ. ഇക്വേഷൻസ് എല്ലാം നമ്മുടെ ഹീറ്റ് കണ്ടക്ഷൻ്റെ അതേ ഇക്വേഷൻ തന്നെ ഡേറ്റ ബുക്കിലുണ്ട്, നിങ്ങൾ നോക്കി പഠിച്ചാൽ. ദെൻ നെക്സ്റ്റ് ക്ലാസ് യു വിൽ സീ ദ ബൾക്ക് മോഷൻ, കൺവെക്ഷൻ പാർട്ട് കൂടെ വരും. സോ